Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you this morning? Hope everybody's doing great. Welcome to the Sunday gathering. Oh, yeah, Terry, you're right. I was busy this week. Sometimes it just works. I don't know, you know. I am finding a little bit of a new way to kind of get videos ready and record them. So I'm able to, I don't know, I've just learned a few things about how I can do it. It makes it a little faster to get some videos done. So that's part of it, I believe. And, oops. So anyway, yeah, I got those 2 videos this week and was pretty excited about that. So yeah. Good morning, Katie Turner and Mom. It's good to see you guys. Hope you're all doing well. Yeah, we may have a few new people this week, I'm expecting, because I made a friend this past week. She's been on the channel for a while, but she started sharing a lot of stuff on different platforms. And that has probably gained us a few possibly regular viewers. So I'm excited about that this morning. Judy Berry, good morning to you. Oh, thank you for watching my videos. I appreciate that. I hope they were helpful. Linda Connor, good morning to you. And Laura Masood, it's good to see you this morning. Rick Bowser, not forgetting you. It's good to see you. All right. Well, just so you guys start thinking about it, start thinking about topics. So please put any topics you want in the chat. I want to mention that this morning I'm trying to monitor a couple different chats as well. I do have the chat live on my website. As you can see on the live stream screen on the top, it says at bible-scribe.com/live with the password live. There you can post anything without being censored. You can always use the YouTube chat, and we'll just do our best with that. If you have trouble posting there, you can jump over to the website. You can post there, and it won't be censored. So you have that available to you. Last week we had a couple people posting quite a bit on the chat, and I want to make sure that I don't miss that today. So I'm going to try to be more diligent in taking a pause every now and then, sweeping the chats, because now there's 3 essentially I have to check to make sure that everybody is taken care of. And that's, to me, a big part of what we do is that I hear from you guys and that we have a dialogue. I don't want it to ever feel like, I'm just here to talk your ears off every Sunday. I don't think that is that's the value. The value we get here, I think, is conversing together, and that happens through the chat at this point. So thank you for your participation. It means a lot to me, and I know it's helpful for you guys. See a bunch of you guys joining in the chat this morning. Now, Jason Sumner, good morning to you. Chris G, Stacia, see you. Rick Bowser, you mentioned a topic here. You mentioned controversy between Peter and Paul. Let me make sure the chat's showing on the screen for you guys. All right. And like I said, I do have the chat also on my website, so you're welcome to use that too. I'm going to do some magic here for a second. I'll try to move some stuff around. Yeah. Ooh, there I am. Okay, I'm still there. But I wanted to show both chats just in case, because last week Emmy was on the Bible Scribe chat, and I missed some of her comments. But if you're watching, Emmy, I did pick your questions up, and we're going to talk about those today. So I wanted you to know that I'm going to take care of you. Apologies for missing that last week. Tanda, it's good to see you this morning. And you guys, thank you for the encouragement. I see Chris G, you're watching the corporate body view video, and Tanda, you mentioned the Walid Shabbat video. Yeah, he goes way back, doesn't he? And it's interesting the Walid Shabbat video, it's interesting to me that it took me a while to come back to his teaching. I had seen that teaching so long ago, like you said. You say he goes way back to TBN, yeah. And it just is neat that after now having done so much research, and then to see that again and to go, I wonder if I could figure out what he's talking about. And there you go. There you have that video. So it really came together nicely. I think that video was one of my recent favorites. It's really good. I liked that. It was fun to put together. Cornelius, good morning to you. It's good to see you, brother. Rafa Sieber, I see you. Thank you for joining. Okay, so let me get these topics on the board. Rick, you mentioned the controversy between Peter and Paul concerning the idea that Paul said salvation was by grace alone. Peter continued to teach law and circumcision combined with grace. All right, Rick, that's a big issue. So I'm going to put it on the list as always. And, I'll have to decide whether I can best address that today or, possibly next week, sometime after I can research a little bit. It's one of those things that now I've gotten a lot of people asking me through the years, here or there about Paul's teaching and why it was so either different from Christ's or different from, as you say, Peter's. And so to me, it feels like I've hit a groundswell point now where enough people have asked that perhaps that's something that I should definitely address in maybe a video, maybe on the live stream. I might take a look into that and then decide which way I'm going to handle that one. Then, let's see, I saw Katie Turner, you had the topic, why was marrying your cousin allowed in biblical times, but not closer relations like sisters? It's a good, interesting topic, Katie. Let me, I'll put that on my list. That's one that I also may, it's not that I don't have, a thought about it, but I don't know that I have a good answer. And, without digging a little bit and maybe reading possibly some rabbinical texts, I'm afraid that I wouldn't be able to get to more than just a passing opinion on the topic, So I appreciate that topic, and I may look into that one so that I can actually answer it. Because right now I'd probably have to say something like, it seems like this, or maybe this, and it would be, your guess is as good as mine kind of thing. All right. Laura Masood, you mentioned that Abraham married his half-sister. I'll put that into my notes there on that one. Thank you guys for putting some topics out there today. I saw another topic. Oh, Katie, you said that's your mom's topic? Cool. Yeah, I'll try to get that figured out. It's something I haven't really thought a lot about. Okay. Stacia, you mentioned a praise report, so let's talk about that briefly. You say, a friend of yours has discovered the similarities between the church and the temple, so her and her husband have started a home church. It's a blessing for me and my family. And that's a great thing to hear. Really great thing. I mean, so fun, and it, the reality of that you guys are a church body in and of yourselves, you don't need that building, is to me an amazing thing to think about and feel. You feel that when you're with the people, right? And you say also it has opened the door to the eschatology that we believe, which is exciting because they are now more open-minded, right? And I know, Stacia, you've mentioned in the past the severe difficulty you've had in, brick and mortar churches with people accepting that you might have a different opinion than them on some of that stuff and really getting upset about it. So to me, it's great that you feel like you're finding some place, a group of people you can share with that aren't judgmental in that way. It's really good. Chris G, you mentioned her discussion there, that would be an interesting topic. If y'all can clarify what the topic would be there, then I'm happy to put that on the list. Deborah Miller, good morning to you. Tomcat, I didn't mention you, but good morning to you. I did say good morning earlier to you in the chat. Kelsey, good morning to you. It's good to have you this morning. Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome, Kelsey. You say thank you for the content. You've been watching these after the fact, but I'm excited that you could join us. I know that the timing is hard when you're doing these things, right? It's hard for some people. It's easy for some people. Just depends on where you live. I get it. Laura Masood, your topic that you just mentioned was Adam both male and female before God took Eve from his side? I like that topic, Laura. That's a very interesting concept. I like it. I could mention that. I could mention my opinions on that. But I think that's an interesting thought to even have. Very cool. That's more of a kind of speculative discussion, isn't it? But one that would be fun to talk about. So yeah, that's interesting. Oh, you say, Lindsay, you say that's Kabbalah from Adam Kadmon. Okay, interesting. I'll put that in my notes too. Chris G, you said, okay, you clarified that the topic you mentioned was that you thought that the similarities of the temple and the church would be a topic. The interesting thing, Chris G, is that I have a video on that specifically, and I discussed it in a previous live stream, and I clipped it and I made it a short video on its own. And so let me get that. I'll put it in the chat for you. We'll try not to go too much longer. We'll go ahead and get started very soon here, guys, with these topics. Okay. All right, there's a lot on the list now, guys. Just wait till I show you the list. You're not even ready. It's going to be fun today. Okay, Chris G, let me pull that video real quick just so I can, at least present that, hey, that's a thing that I have and it's available. So let me do that real fast. So, showing my screen, I'll show you that video real quick. YouTube, oh, that's not what I meant to do. Go to my channel. Go to videos. Search for temple. There it is, comparing the Jewish temple to the modern church. So I'll just slam that link in the chat so you've got it. You can grab it out. Okay, so just wanted to get that to you. Squiffy Bear, good morning to you. It's good to have you. Laura Masood, also you say, does Kabbalah mean the cube of Allah? That's an interesting thought as well. I'm going to put that in my notes. Pittsburgh Joe, good to have you this morning. It's good to see you there. And Lou Fisher, I see you there. You ask if I've looked in the doctrine of Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 being two separate creations of beings, Adam and Eve being the line of Christ, just as Israel was. I've heard of that view before, Lou Fisher, and I'll put that on my list as kind of like a look into this. But I do not give that theory any credit. But, without going into detail right now, I'll just say that, but I am happy to make that a topic. I may, as you guys see the topics, you'll see why I may have to make some of these a next time kind of thing. Okay, so let me start sharing the topics and show you what the list looks like right now. And you'll be like, oh. So let's see here. Okay, there's the topics at this point. You can see that. So the topics just mentioned were these 4 that I put in there from you guys today. Rick Bowser's The Controversy Between Paul and Peter, and you said you're going to get me more info from Martin Luther on this, and I'll definitely be interested to hear that from you, brother. Katie Turner, your mom's topic of Katie Turner's mom. There we go. Why was marrying your cousin allowed? And then I followed with Laura Massoud's comment on that. Laura Massoud, your topic of was Adam both male and female before God took Eve from his side, from his rib? And then Lindsay, your comment on the Kabbalistic nature of that idea. Then these are all other topics that either we already had on the list from last week, or for instance, this one, I definitely want to share this topic today. It's a topic I want to bring for your edification, and I think it's super important. So I'm going to do this topic. Emmy posted in the other chat last week, in the Bible Scribe chat, she posted, what's the book on the Crusades called that I've been reading? She's curious about the time period and wondered if that was the period Satan was loose to deceive the nations and such. And so I was going to at least share the book I'm reading so you guys can see that. Deborah Miller, last time you mentioned, could you discuss time references in the Bible, and specifically in Ecclesiastes where it says there's nothing new under the sun? I think we're just going to address this pretty quickly today. Joe Fisher had put a comment about Rabbi Akiva and the Septuagint, so I found some information on that, and I can go over that pretty quickly today. Emma also asked in Leviticus chapter 12, why do I think a woman is unclean longer if she gives birth to a daughter than if she gives birth to a son? We can mention this. I don't have much information on this, but we could at least see the passage and then maybe speculate about what that means. Terry Barnes, you asked last time, is there a mistranslation for the recipe of the first anointing oil for the first tabernacle that God gave Aaron? And this has to do with the idea that possibly cannabis, marijuana plant, was involved in the temple preparation. So that's the discussion here, and it won't take long. There's not a ton of information on this. I think I can at least go over this today. And then on our Rumble channel last week, we had Slytherin Hiss, who asked about Mark Taylor and Kim Clement and their prophecies. I thought this was actually a pretty appropriate thing to talk about. A lot of people have this in their minds. You know, they see that, oh, Mark Taylor would make prophecies about, you know, the president and about this time period and coming years. What does it mean? Is it real? What is it? And then Kim Clement is the same thing. There's a lot of prophecies from Kim Clement, who I believe he died in 2015. He actually has passed on. And so people are asking, you know, are his prophecies real? It seems like they match some things, right? And then I have some other comments on that as well. So I think we'll probably try to do this today. I think I can get through all of the old topics today, and then we'll see where we get on the new topics. Rafa Sieber, you had mentioned if I'd seen this timeline. I went to this video and thought to myself, I think I've watched this video. It's from the Tartaria Deception YouTube channel, I think. And we can at least show that timeline and then maybe talk about it in regards to how I feel about it. And I'll give you my viewpoint. But it is an interesting timeline, interesting channel, interesting video. Okay, now you guys see the challenge ahead of us. So... So let me check your chat real quick, and then I'll do announcements, and then we'll get into it. Linda Connor, you say you're looking forward to the Mark Taylor, Kim Clement discussion. We'll do that, I think, today for sure. I think it's important to some people on the channel, and maybe not so much others, but that's okay. All right, so let's do this. I'm not seeing a lot of chatter at all on my chat on my website, so I'll hide that for now, make myself giant again. Technology's so weird. I'm just saying, technology's weird. Okay, on the chat, let's see. Pittsburgh Joe, I want to make sure I grab your topic before I move forward. I don't want to miss it. how do you say, why do we claim a partial preterist is a preterist? It's like saying you're a cop because you drive a car. Just knowing 70 AD happened doesn't make you a preterist. It's an interesting comment. Okay, I'm going to put that, Joe, in my notes here. And it's most likely going to, if it's going to be a topic, we're going to have to do it next time. We just got too much stuff going on here. It's going to be a whirlwind of a day, people. It's going to be a whirlwind. It's going to be exciting. I've never talked so fast in my life. Here we go. C. Jones, by the way, good morning to you, sir. Maybe a topic for another day, you say, but do I remember Isaiah 11:6 being the lion will lay down with the lamb, or has it always been the wolf laying down with the lamb? Oh, it's always to me been the wolf. I mean, yes, I remember the talk about the lion laying down with the lamb. I did a video on this verse and on what this means. And it's not what most people, especially futurists, think it means. In prophetic language, the animals being talked about in that passage are Jewish representations of the 12 tribes of Israel. With that perspective, you'll understand that passage a whole lot better. But yes, the passage does say wolf. It's not the lion laying down with the lamb. But I think the lion's mentioned, and that would be, of course, the tribe of Judah. And then a lot of other things in that video. That's an old one. Man, that's an old one. So, all right. Man, I got to get going. Okay, let's move on to announcements really quick. And then we'll get started, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for joining this morning. I really appreciate you. Again, it's always such a blessing to me to be able to do this with you. Because heaven knows we can't do much of this anywhere else. So it's good to be able to do it together. All right. Get this up the screen. So my studies this week, just so you're kind of in sync with me on what I've been looking at, thinking about. Of course, the videos I did took a lot of my time. And I think most of you on the live stream today know about those videos, the CBV and IBV preterist views of resurrection. Not one of my favorite topics to talk about. I don't really agree with either of those views, and I go through the reasons in that video, but I do also kind of give a brief overview of those views, so I hope that is helpful. They're kind of complicated in a lot of ways. So the other video, the Walid Shabbat 666 Number of the Beast Revelation video, that was a favorite of mine. I just enjoyed putting that together. A lot of really good information, spider webs out from Walid and his fraudulent claims about the Bible and other things. Really good one. So I enjoyed doing that. And then my book on the Crusades, and this will answer also Emmy's question about this topic, because I've been reading this book, and I even up to like yesterday I was reading this book even last night, I believe. I'm just going through it kind of slow, but enjoying it because it's the ancient writings that refer to the First Crusade. And so let me bring that up for you to see that book. It's right here. It's called The First Crusade by J. Rubenstein. And that's the picture of the book. But it's, as you can see, it's the First Crusade with a brief history with the documents that actually talk about it from the ancient times. So with that being said, it's to me been a lot of fun to read that thing, and I'm getting a lot out of it. It's one of the interesting things, for instance, is that, and I didn't know much about the military campaigns that the Christians went on down to Jerusalem and through the different cities on the way. But part of some of the wars they won, the people felt like they won the wars because of God. And one of the interesting things was that some of their leaders carried the spear of destiny into those wars, meaning the spear that supposedly, according to them, the actual spear that was thrust into Christ's side on the cross. And so the Crusaders carried that as a relic with them in battle. In fact, from what the writings say, even was used in battle. And they felt like that was part of what gave them the victories in those battles as they went from town to town on their way to Jerusalem, fighting the Turks, the Muslims, the Saracens, all of this, the Fatimids. And so it's just really interesting to read what they wrote about that time period. So I'm learning. I'm trying to just gather the knowledge that I can on that time period. And I also have another book on the Middle Ages that I'm trying to get into, trying to force myself to understand more about the time period, because I think it's crucial to our understanding of the history of the Christian church. So just wanted to mention that. Laura, you say your mother-in-law's ancestor was a crusader. That is amazing. He came to the Holy Land from France and then stayed. That's amazing. Especially that you have that knowledge of your ancestry. It's awesome. All right, so that's that. No other real studies I've been doing, announcements. My website, I've just kept updated. I haven't done a whole lot of new stuff, but I'm considering now starting to organize things a little differently, a little better. It's just, there's a lot there, okay? And that's good for you guys, really. If you're interested in finding something specific, you may find it on my website, but it may be hard because I feel like I have a lot of stuff there and not a good way to kind of browse it or search it. So I'm considering what to do there, and I'll get back to you guys with the updates that I do make. As always, I just like to mention that, we as a church body, even though we're separate physically, we are joined in this weekly scheduled gathering, and I think we should pray for one another. I do think of you guys from time to time during the week, and I pray for you, and I would hope that you can pray for me and the others on the channel as well. So I just like to mention that. Thank you so much for your participation this morning, as always. All right, here we go, guys. We got a lot to get through. The first thing I'd like to talk about today, because I think it's so important, is my topic here. And so let me find where I've got this brought up and I can talk about it with you. Now, you're going to probably be like, what are you talking about, Bible Scribe? But this topic hits home to me. And so you can see on your screen the title here. This happened this week. I don't know if you guys know this. This just happened. And last week we talked about a lot of, healthy ways to take care of hygiene and do it in a natural way that doesn't include a lot of chemicals and all this stuff. We had a large segment on that last week. We all talked about different things we do. We had some really good stuff suggested in the chat, by the way. But this kind of, to me connects. And so I saw this article, and because the topic of breast cancer and all that kind of stuff has hit my family pretty hard in the past in a couple of different times with a couple of different people. And I just think it's interesting that just this week, Switzerland banned the practice of mammographs for screening for cancer for women. Because, we'll read just a couple things here. The Swiss Medical Board, it says here, reviewed all of the available evidence and released a report in February of 2014 stating the evidence does not support common medical mantra that mammograms are safe and capable of saving lives. And so this apparently had been probably in the court system for a while. So that's from 2014. But the thing I read was that all the original reports that the practice of mammography was based on, mammogram screenings, the support for it was based on pretty bad data that was prior to them being implemented. So they didn't have any good data on whether they were actually helpful or whether they were harmful. It appears from the reports that mammography may prevent only one death for every 1,000 women screened while causing harm to many more. In the review, the board advised the quality of mammography screening should be evaluated and women should be informed in a balanced way about the benefits and harms of screening. Trying to see if it is going to give us, there's a little information that came with the posts on this that, let me see if it's included here. No. Yeah, the original post that I found this on, what it said was that the tissue damage caused by the mammogram, because, you women who've had it, you know how it's done. It's a very kind of retarded process of how they get the scans of your breasts, and it's very damaging to the tissue. And the people that posted these news articles were saying that the tissue damage and the gland damage that occurs because of the screening makes you more prone to have tumors in your breasts. So I just wanted to share this with you because to me this is crucial for women, and I've never felt like this screening process was a good thing. Once I realized how it was done, I was like, that can't be good. There can't be anything good about that. First, you're mashing all that tissue and probably hurting things, and then they're pumping it full of radiation or other kinds of frequencies or magnetic resonance to get the scans, and it just doesn't sound good for the entire process to be done. It sounds bad. So this is not medical advice. This is entertainment only. But I'm just giving you this information for your own benefit. You can take it for what it's worth and use it to your advantage or your disadvantage. So I appreciate you guys. I just really wanted to share that. I feel strongly about this. And again, I've with experience in my own family with this kind of thing and having breast cancer history in my family, it's close to my heart. So I just wanted to say it, wanted to put it out there. I hope it helps you guys. And by the way, you can do a search online. It's all over the place. This is not like on some far, weird leaning website. This is all over the place, and it's true. Switzerland did stop the practice of scheduled mammogram screenings for their health system. So anyway, just for what it's worth, there you go. Wanted to share. All right. So let's move on to our first other topic. And I forgot to put that on the screen, but oh well. Okay, so I'm going to try to get through the topics that are old first, because I up to this point, guys, by the way, I've never had a problem finishing all of our topics, but now I've got so many. So let's try to get through these. Some of these are going to be shorter, and I don't think it's going to be that tough an issue to get through some of these. So let's start here with Deborah Miller's topic from last week. And I'm going to do it this way. Nothing new under the sun. So I think that what I'd like to do is just open Ecclesiastes, and we can look at that passage together, and we'll talk through a little bit here. So let's start with that. Let's open the Bible, Ecclesiastes, and oh, that's not good. Let me log in. I've got a problem on my website right now I got to fix. It's really annoying me. Ecclesiastes chapter 12. Let's see. Oh, that's frustrating. Under. Where is under? I don't know it. Ecclesiastes. All right. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9. So the question from you, Deborah, was essentially, you've been thinking about how people apply this scripture, that there's nothing new under the sun. Right. Because people say that all the time. I think I understand what you mean, because I've heard it said a lot in terms of, the evils in the world, like there's nothing new under the sun. It's all been done before. Or some people even say it in regards to things like technology. Like, for instance, I've heard people take genetic manipulation in modern health and science and relate that back to the Nephilim, when the angels copulated with human women, however they did it, and produced a race of giants. They compare those things and say, see, there's nothing new under the sun. And they refer to this passage. And so to me, that's probably what you're talking about, Deborah. let's just read chapter 1 down to that section in verse 9, just so we get the context. This is the very beginning of Ecclesiastes, so let's just look at this real quick. It says, the words of the preacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. By the way, I just wanted to say, in the sentiment of this verse, vanity is vanity, all is vanity. This is one of the reasons I haven't studied Ecclesiastes very hard. Of course, I've read it multiple times, but I've never really taken time to just deep dive in it. It's really a kind of depressing book. And so I think for that reason, I just haven't been interested in studying it really hard. So I'll just admit right off the bat, this is one of my lesser studied portions of Scripture. But that being said, let's continue. Verse 3, what profit has a man of all his labor which he takes under the sun? One generation passes away, another comes, the earth abides forever. By the way, I just want to mention that forever, that's usually not a good translation of the Hebrew. So I'm going to go to the Hebrew real quick. And you can see here in Strong's, you can't see my screen that well, but olam, the word used and translated in English, forever, doesn't mean forever. It means of a long duration, or from antiquity, or into the future. But it doesn't mean forever, okay? I just wanted to mention that because it's one of the words that it's often mistranslated. In fact, Hebrew, as far as I understand it as a language, does not have a word for forever. They don't have a word for that. So it is what it is. I just wanted to mention. It says, one generation passes, another comes, but the earth is forever, or long enduring. The sun also arises. The sun goes down and hastes to its place where he arose. The wind goes towards the south, turns about again into the north. It whirls continually. The wind returns again according to its circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. All things are full of labor. Man cannot utter it. The eye is satisfied with seeing, or is not satisfied with seeing. The ear is not filled with hearing. Man is unsatisfied. That the thing that has been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. There is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new. It has already been done of old time, which was before us. There is no remembrance of the former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. So that's our context, guys. And I feel like this helps because it helps me understand in the frame of mind that Solomon's talking here. And as far as we know, this is written by Solomon. So it's talking about all these kind of cosmological things, right? The sun rising and going down, the winds and how they go around the earth, or wherever they go, they have circuits, they travel, the rivers running to the sea. And this is the context in which he's talking about that there's nothing new under the sun. He then talks about man's labor. Man is always in labor. And that man is never satisfied with that labor. So then the verse in question, there's no new thing under the sun, we just have to recognize the context. So Deborah Miller, to your point about, well, people apply this all the time, even in the modern time. While that it may be applicable to say that in the same way Solomon says, okay, he says, in general, life is the same as it's been. The way the earth works, it's repetitive. It's all the same. It goes on and on. Men, he says, they work and labor and are never satisfied. That's the context in which he says the thing. He's not saying that, well, I don't know. Let's take, for example, okay, he's not saying that we have automobiles now, gas-powered automobiles. And back then they had horse-drawn carriages, and it's the same thing. That to me is just a goofy comparison to make. And to me, it's not in the spirit of what we just read. He's talking about the fact that the world goes round and round. It's going to keep spinning for a long time. And man does the same thing he's always done. In fact, as we go further in Ecclesiastes, it talks more and more about man himself. He talks about himself. He talks about the good and the wicked and how the wicked prosper. So most of what it seems like he's focused on in Ecclesiastes, right, is the travail of man striving for things that don't matter. Okay? I guess maybe we could say that might be the overarching theme of Ecclesiastes. That's why he says it's vanity of vanities. It's not vanity that the earth goes around. It's vanity that man strives for things he can't achieve or is never satisfied with, over and over and over again. And then he says in verse 11, like we saw, man doesn't even remember the former things that happened, so he keeps striving for the same things, generation after generation after generation. This is what makes Solomon depressed with the world, okay? It's mankind, and it's the actions of mankind. So I guess in the sense that, as he's saying, mankind strives for vain things, we could say that about the modern period, couldn't we? I mean, how many things do we see people working for out there, even ourselves sometimes, that are in the end just vanity, just things that are going to go up in ash when we're gone, One of the things that Solomon mentions in Ecclesiastes is how a man might work and gain a lot of property and value and wealth, but then his son will come along and not remembering former things or caring because he didn't earn that stuff. The sons or daughters of that man will squander his wealth in the coming generations. And that's just how the world works. That's how things work because of the way it is. And so that's what, to me, Solomon's talking about. And yes, Deborah, I think it's wrong to incorrectly compare what he says to everything in our modern times. But in the sense that mankind is a little, what do they say? The definition of insanity is someone doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. Well, that's kind of how humanity is, right? Over the ages. Man is always searching for things that will not fill his heart. And in the end, God's the only one that can do that. And nothing new in that regard under the heavens. I hope that helps, Deborah. I think that's what I would say about that passage and about that statement. There's nothing new under the heaven. Under the sun, rather. Okay. I think that's a good treatise on that for now. And let me check in with you guys. Joe Fisher, I see you popped in there. Good morning to you. Let me show the chat again. We'll make sure we're not missing anything here. I see you guys mentioning a little bit about Eric Berg. I think you're still chatting there about some of the cancer treatments and stuff like that. You mentioned Eric Berg. You mentioned Harvey Diamond and Fit for Life as a resource. Chris G, you say you love Berg and have followed him for years. And yeah, Chris G, you mentioned that you're working against cancer right now, and we do pray for you. We will pray for you. I'm going to put that on my notes so I remember that. I don't want to forget that. Let's see here. I would ask too that all of you guys on the live stream right now, if you wouldn't mind, because I do this every day. I think this is a good thing. If you wouldn't mind right now, just kind of bowing your head where you are and saying a quick prayer to God for Chris G and his health, I would appreciate that. I know Chris would. Amen. All right. Yeah, Chris G, we appreciate you, and we definitely want you to be able to overcome that. I know you've gotten a lot of advice, haven't you? Just do your best, brother, and stay close to God, and we'll see what happens, won't we? God bless you in that. All right. Let's see what else we got. Make sure I'm not missing anything you guys are talking about. You guys, looks like you're already praying for each other. That's good. Laura Masood, you mentioned to Chris that your mother had cancer all over and was given terminal diagnosis. She told God she couldn't leave my father with his children, and you were only 2 at the time, and it all went away. She died this year, 55 years later. That's an amazing testimony. Chris G, you say you have a good you're optimistic and have a good plan. That's key. Excellent, excellent. You know, this is one of the things that I love hearing is we are able now to share our life experiences, to hear other people's experiences with God and with other miracles that have happened in their lives because of God. So thank you, Laura, for sharing that information. Linda, you mentioned that your friend's wife was told she had cancer. They prayed. It was gone in 24 hours. Seek Jesus for guidance. Excellent. Rafa, you mentioned chlorine dioxide as a possible remedy. Excellent. Charles Murph, good morning to you. It's good to have you. All right. Yeah, tons of advice. Advice overload. All right. All right, let's move on to the next topic. And that, Joe Fisher, you joined just in time. You asked about Rabbi Akiva, or Akiva, and so I'm going to respell him as Rabbi Akiva in the Septuagint. So let me go into this topic briefly here, because you mentioned this. I thought it was an interesting little journey you took me on, and so yeah, I'm gonna do that right now. So let's do that. Rabbi Akiva and the Septuagint. So interesting. Let's see where I put all those notes. Let's see. All right. Yes. Okay. Rabbi Akiva. Interesting. So to share my screen now so you can see what I'm talking about. Yes. So Joe Fisher last week mentioned Rabbi Akiva, who I didn't know about. I didn't know anything about. And the concept or the topic of the Septuagint in relation to him. So I didn't know anything about this. So I came here first because it was the easiest site to get to. I looked at, who's Rabbi Akiva? At least this gives me an overview of who the guy is. So Akiva ben Joseph was a rabbi born in 50 AD, and he lived until 135 AD. Okay, so that's the time frame. So he's born before the temple was destroyed. He saw all of that happen, and he lived until 135 AD, and I believe that may be, he was executed by the Romans in the middle of the Bar Kokhba revolt of the Jews. So while the Romans were taking out Jews during the Bar Kokhba revolt, because they believed Bar Kokhba was the Messiah, he was killed along with many of those Jews in 135 AD. So that was interesting information. And it's interesting, Joe Fisher, as I looked down through this article, looking for it, I couldn't find a single mention of the Septuagint. So that baffled me. I'm like, well, what is this thing about the Septuagint? How is he connected, right? So I had to do just some searching, and I did find another site that helped me out a little bit. And that was this site. This article by Robert Rees, and the source of that would be majorityrights.com. I don't know much about this person or anything, but this was an informative article. And the article's title is, if you can see that, Masoretic versus Septuagint, Guns, Lies, and Forgeries. So it's an interesting article. I need to actually read through the whole thing. I don't think I read through the entire article. But I've talked about this discussion a lot, the Masoretic text versus the Septuagint text of the Holy Scriptures. And so the Masoretic text, just so you guys understand what these two are, and a lot of you know this, but I'm just going to briefly go over it. The Septuagint was a Greek version of the Old Testament. Okay? A Greek version of the Old Testament only. The reason is because it was written before Christ. About, if I'm not mistaken, 350 years before Christ. This is when the Jews had come back into Jerusalem and been able to rebuild because of the book of Nehemiah and rebuilding the walls and the temple and all that. So they were back in Jerusalem. And at that time, the Greek Empire controlled most of the known world. And they, in fact, controlled so much that the Hebrews themselves, the Jewish nation, they all mostly spoke Greek. Even though, of course, the rabbis and all, they still knew Hebrew. But because so many of them were speaking Greek, and their newer generations were being brought up with Greek and not Hebrew anymore, or Aramaic, the Jews got together and decided, we need a copy of the Holy Scriptures, our holy Torah, the Old Testament Scriptures and prophets and all that. They needed a copy in Greek so that all the people could read it too. So they got together. It was actually a pretty miraculous event. They chose 70 elders to work on the translation of the Hebrew Scriptures into Greek, and that is the Septuagint. And the Septuagint was in use from that time until the time of Christ. So when Jesus was at all referring to the Bible, he was using the Septuagint. It's the Greek version of the Old Testament. So when he refers to the prophets, it matches the Septuagint text identically when we read that in our New Testament, his quotes from the Old Testament. Along with all the quotes from the disciples in the New Testament, they all match the Septuagint version. Now, that being said, the Masoretic text came about in about 900 AD. Okay, there was a group of Jews, in my opinion, Pharisaical Jews, that decided in 900 AD that they wanted to make a, quote, comprehensive retranslation of the Holy Old Testament, the Holy Scriptures for them, the Torah. So they got together in 900 AD, almost 1,000 years after Christ, and they assembled this translation called the Masoretic text. And almost, by the way, almost every modern version of the Bible is based on the Masoretic text, the King James included. So you have to wonder, why did they need a new translation of the Hebrew Scriptures in 900 AD when there was already reliable ones prior? It's a good question. I've talked a lot about this. I feel that that text is corrupt in a lot of ways. Small changes they made to obscure the fact that Christ was the Messiah. I believe they intentionally did it. So when Joe Fisher mentioned this Rabbi Akiva, and we see that he was alive in the early, first century and into the second, we see some interesting things. So we can jump down here and get a little more information. Rabbi Akiva in 95 AD later proclaimed Bar Kokhba as the Messiah. As I mentioned, he was killed in the Bar Kokhba revolt. And he hired a man named Aquila to translate a Hebrew to Greek version of the Old Testament that would undermine the messianic claims of Jesus found in the Septuagint. Some scholars believe that the Masoretic text was based in part on this translation by Aquila. Now, this would require, by the way, a little more study on my part to get more information on this translation by Aquila. I have not done that research. So Joe Fisher, I apologize if I didn't go too deep into this one yet. I did have a lot I did this week, but it's something that I'm interested in and will probably study further. And I think you mentioned in the chat you had a lot of information on this. I would be happy to entertain any of that information. So at least put it in my notes and use it when I get to researching this. So that is the connection between Rabbi Akiva in the 1st and 2nd century and the Septuagint or the Masoretic text. By the way, not only is this rabbi apparently connected to a corruption of the text of the Holy Scriptures, but I do have also quotes that I've gone over in other videos from early church fathers that said, and I believe that, what's his name? Oh, well, anyway, a couple of the different church fathers. I don't remember. I can't, for a reason, when I want to remember something, that's when it vanishes, of course. A couple of the church fathers mentioned that the Jews were trying to change the text of the Scriptures in the end of the first and towards the second century. Okay, I have quotes from them that say they were doing this, that the Jews were doing this. So it is conceivable that Rabbi Akiva and his translation from Aquila was part of those attempts, and that perhaps the Masoretes in 900 AD, they wanted to make sure as best they could take all the other texts out of the system so that people wouldn't study those texts anymore, and that they would rely on only these corrupt translations of the Old Testament that obscure the messianic nature of Jesus Christ. Okay, that he fulfilled all the original prophecies. Well, they went in and they finagled with some of those prophecies so that it wouldn't match so well. Okay, and that's what we're talking about here. So appreciate you bringing that to my attention, Joe Fisher. I really do. And here, this section of this article lists some of the ways that the Masoretic text is different from the Septuagint. Now, that doesn't necessarily speak specifically to the Aquila translation, which I'm going to do some research and see if I can find out more about that translation. That's what I'm interested in. Of course, you know me, the older the text I can find that helps us understand what happened at that time, the better. And this would add to my, different knowledge about the things that happened that corrupted the text after Christ came. Because the Jews didn't want anyone to believe that Jesus was the Messiah. They had to change things, right? Just amazing. All right, so you guys have got a few comments there I want to make sure to talk about. You say, that's awesome, Bible Scribe. Thank you, Joe Fisher. I'm glad at least I was able to address it here. Paul the Hat, good morning. It's good to see you. You say, should read the Eden series by Paul Wallace. Essential reading for further knowledge. Yep, well, you're gone. Remove. Paul the Hat, you're blocked because you came to my channel and completely out of context tried to push Paul Wallace's teaching on my channel. You can leave now. Thank you. All right. Laura Masood, you say, Charles, it sure seems like the Catholic Church fits the description of the harlot of Babylon, not the bride of Christ. Gotcha. Okay. Charles, you had said, the reason she responded is you said there's lots of documents showing the Catholic Church was called the beast by the reformers in the Geneva Bible footnotes. That's true. So the thing you're talking about there, I mean, this is a big topic, right? The reformers did feel like the Catholic Church was the beast, okay? It's, in fact, like I've read Martin Luther where he talks about it. He wrote letters to people where I have comments where he said that the Catholic Church was the end times beast and it was going downhill fast. They thought they were in the end times in the 1400s, okay? So that's known. Then you have John Calvin doing the same thing. He talked about that too. The Catholic Church was very hated by the Protestants of those time periods. So it makes sense. And Charles Murphy, you're right on the money there. And then Laura, you say, it seems like the Catholic Church fits the description of the harlot of Babylon, not the bride of Christ. Right. Okay, I get what you're saying. You're saying the Catholic Church is corrupt, right? Okay, we get it. Yes, it is corrupt. So just so we're aware, though, and you guys know my studies on this, and that I recently even have done videos on Babylon in Revelation, and that whether you feel like it had anything to do with the Catholic Church, it was definitely related to Rome, okay? And I'm actually learning more about that and how the Catholic Church became a part of Rome, and that might have been part of that whole kind of thing that Revelation is talking about. Not too far into the future there, but we know that in the 300s, the Council of Nicaea occurred, and Constantine got all wound up in the church. A lot of control mechanisms put in place then. A lot of pastors expelled from their churches, by the way, bishops. So yeah, the comments on the Catholic Church are well taken. Lindsay Ball, you say, watch Gunnar Heinsohn. Each event, like the destruction of the temple, rests on the same stratigraphic layer. So all at the same time. Yes, that is Gunnar Heinsohn's postulates, that a bunch of events from the time of Christ, during the time of Rome, all through the first 1,000 years or so of AD history, his postulate is because the archaeology doesn't show different strata for all of the different things that are claimed to have happened during that time period. He says, no, there's only like 2 strata of different buildings, and changes, time periods that all of that refers to. There's just not the archaeological evidence they would need to support what the history books say about the first 1,000 years after Christ. So just to restate what Heinsohn's view is, I've started doing some research on him. Actually, Miss Katie Turner and me did a video talking about one of Gunnar Heinsohn's videos, and you guys can jump back. What did I call that thing? Let me see here. Try to find that video, because the Gunnar Heinsohn information to me is just really awesome. Let's see here. Where is that? Where is that doggone video? Well, I'm having trouble finding it. I may try to find it later then. Oh, that's frustrating. It's always when you want to find something that you have trouble. Well, I'll find that later and probably post it so you guys get a handle on. Oh, here it is. This one right here. Yeah, this is it. So let me put that on the screen so you guys see that. We did talk a lot about this video that Gunnar Heinsohn produced, and yeah, it was a ton of fun. So I wanted to at least make you guys aware of that. So it's called Study Session Chronology, and that's available on my channel with me and Katie working on Gunnar Heinsohn's video there and talking all about the different points he makes. It was a lot of fun. We'll have to do that again, Katie. Come on, let's do it. It was a lot of fun. All right. I think that's good for that topic. So let's try to move forward. What's our next topic here? We're going pretty fast, pretty fast. Whew. I think, Emmy, if you're on, I'm going to skip this topic today. And that is because I don't have a ton of information on it. It would be more like just reading the passage and talking through it. So maybe I'll just put this off till next time. So let me, I'm going to highlight that. Whew, man, I got a lot going, guys. Highlight that so I remember when I'm looking back through these notes that I'll address that in the future here. So Terry Barnes, we come to your topic. You asked if there's a mistranslation. Oops, there we go. Is there a mistranslation of the recipe for the first anointing oil for the tabernacle God gave Aaron? And I think the overall topic here, when I looked into this online, the overall topic was kind of like, was cannabis, I gotta spell cannabis right. I don't ever type that word. Cannabis used in the Mosaic law and ritual. That is the topic. So you also said, what we use to anoint now seems different, not so special as God commissioned in Exodus. So I looked this up, tried to get some information. The best that anyone knows, of course, the people that support cannabis use, they all want the Bible to say, oh yeah, you're supposed to use cannabis. Of course they would. You know, every cannabis selling store on the face of the earth is going to want the Bible to confirm that it's good to use cannabis, right? So we just have to be aware there may be a slight agenda to many people that talk about cannabis being in the Bible, saying that, okay? Let's just be aware and realize that may be the case. But we'll go to this passage, Exodus 30, verse 23, and talk about it. I did find this article, so let me just show that on the screen. Let's see. Do I have that already. Sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. I'll just put it up here. What does the Bible teach about the cannabis plant? So I did read through most of this article, and I found in here the passage that we're talking about. It is honestly discussed often in regards to this topic. So it says, such a practice in the Israelite cultus is to heighten communication with Yahweh is not found. So a practice of using cannabis or using something to, enhance the spiritual connection with God is not found in the scriptures. Even though the text, it says, of Exodus 30:22 through 29 is posited as an example of ceremonial use. The argument is that the Kaneh Basim of Exodus 30:22 is in fact a reference to cannabis, and that the common view should be translated sweet calamus, which is what the King James says, is a mistranslation. But this article says, that's not the case. And we're going to look at this. I don't want to go into his explanations. It doesn't matter. We're going to look at it ourselves. That's what I wanted to do today. So let's do that. And I'll go here to Exodus 30. Oh my goodness. I'm getting so mad at that thing. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to fix that fast because that's maddening. What's wrong with that thing, man? Exodus 30, verse 23. All right, here's the verse. So it is in regards to temple practices, tabernacle congregation. It says when they go in, Aaron and his sons, the priesthood, would wash their hands and feet, and they'll have to wash or they're going to die when they go into the temple. And when they come near to the altar to burn an offering made by fire to the Lord, and they will wash their hands and feet, that they die not, and it shall be a statute for them forever, and to him and his seed throughout their generations. And then moreover, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take thou to thee principal spices of pure myrrh 500 shekels, and sweet cinnamon half as much, even 250 shekels, and of sweet calamus 250 shekels. And of cassia 500 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary, and of oil, olive, and hin. All right, so that's the passage. And then what happens is the cannabis supporters that come in and they'll take this verse 23 and they'll say, look, this sweet calamus thing right here, it's not sweet calamus, it's marijuana plant, because marijuana plant's sweet, right? They'll say stuff like that. So what we'll do is we'll go to that passage. We'll look at the Hebrew really quick. I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but I'll at least show you what I saw, and you can make for yourself what determination you want to. When it mentions myrrh, the word is actually myrrh. That is a Hebrew word, by the way. And so myrrh, we know, is correct. It's what it's talking about when it says myrrh. It says myrrh liquid, so like the oil of myrrh. When it mentions cinnamon, sweet-smelling cinnamon, note this, okay? This is the part that, to me, kind of helps me understand this is probably not cannabis, okay? It says the word cinnamon, really cinnamon, but in Hebrew this is a bark, okay? It's bark. So whether it was literal cinnamon or just a bark that was familiar to the Israelites, I'm not sure, but the Hebrew here is referring to bark and or cinnamon. By the way, I don't know if you know this, the idea of using barks as medicinal treatments is very well known through the ancient world. In fact, did you know that aspirin comes from willow tree bark? In fact, I think if you eat willow tree bark, you may die. It's powerful, so don't do that. I read a whole book on where did aspirin come from. It was one of the most interesting books I've read ever. But that was the interesting thing to me too, is that aspirin comes from willow tree bark. Okay, so it mentions here cinnamon in the Hebrew with this word. I don't want to try to pronounce that now because I'll mangle it. That's a wekinaman. Okay, that's where our word cinnamon comes from. And then the word sweet smelling is used with cinnamon. Now the word sweet smelling is also used where it says calamus. Okay, and in this translation they use the word cane, sweet smelling cane. This sweet smelling word is besem. Okay? And the word besem in Hebrew doesn't really mean sweet smelling, although it can. It means a spice or a perfume. And so it's used in this case as, it's actually a noun. It's not a descriptive term, it's a noun. So it should be translated here cinnamon perfume or cinnamon spice. Okay? That's really what these two words should be translated are. And then where it comes to the cannabis thing, which is here, where it generally in the King James says sweet smelling calamus. The word here is bosem, like we read before, a sweet smelling fragrance. But really, it's a noun, even in this sense. So it means a spice. And the previous word that people think it refers to marijuana is actually ukena, and it is a stalk or a cane. So it's actually more likely that this is something like a sugar cane. Okay, it's not, a marijuana plant isn't like a cane plant. It's different. And so it's just, to me, it's a long stretch, I guess, is what I'm saying, to say that this is cannabis and that this refers to marijuana. In the Hebrew, we just looked at it. It uses this spice word in both cases of cinnamon and this other plant. It doesn't in any sense hint that it might be some type of hallucinogenic drug or, mind-altering drug. Instead, it talks about a cane-type plant that is a spice. All right? So you can make of that what you will. I'm just telling you, when I saw the Hebrew, I was like, well, I'm leaning way off of the fact that this could be cannabis. I really don't think that's the case. But, if you want to postulate that, I guess it's worth postulating. I just don't know that there's really support for it. So that's really what I have to say about that. I just realized that my title was all messed up. Title was messed up. There we go. All right, let me check on you guys, see what you're talking about in the chat. I did a lot of talking there. I didn't even look at what you guys were saying. Okay, so let's see here. Let me hide the screen so you guys can see the chat too. You guys continued to talk a lot there about the Catholic Church. That's cool. That's cool. Stacia, you say, sweet, no skunky. Yes. It's nice. Y'all are mentioning Ian Peasley, Oxford Union debate in 1967. Charles Murph. And you said also in 1988, Pope John Paul in the European Parliament. Tomcat, you mentioned cocaine. I don't know, Tomcat. I don't know. The quote spices are mentioned and then they're not talked about really. So it's like, I don't know. Charles, you say, love your lessons. I learn a lot from everyone. Been watching a long time. Great topics. Thank you. Thank you, Charles. All right. So let me check on what's next here. What is next? Man, we're moving through a lot of them fast today. Whew. Oh, that's next. Guess what's next, guys? I think a lot of you are going to like this one. You're going to like this one. Mark Taylor, Kim Clement, and their prophecies. All right, this will be fun. Okay, let me get my mind in the right place for this one. Okay, let's see. Let me get my websites up, and we'll start looking at this. And you guys are welcome to put in the chat if you have thoughts about Mark Taylor or Kim Clement. But I had to do some research, honestly, because I had seen just enough of these prophets, if you will, so-called, whatever we want to say there. I had seen enough of their stuff to kind of feel like it wasn't giving me anything I needed. Okay, and I'll just say that's my personal kind of reaction to what I saw when I was exposed to the Mark Taylor prophecies or the Kim Clement prophecies. And I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to be mean, because that's how I feel about it. I'm gonna expect you guys to make your own determinations, and I'm just trying to present some information here. And the fact that I feel one way about it shouldn't change you unless you feel like the evidence is adequate for you. Okay, that's how this all should work. That's why this channel works, and I think our discussions work, because we realize that we're going to have some differing opinions, and that's just how it is. But my original reaction to these guys was just that I didn't find any real value there for me. Okay, so let's just briefly look. I'll put it on the screen. This is Mark Taylor's website, and I just, it's interesting. I don't know what to say other than he put all of his prophecies, it looks like, on here. I thought that was interesting. I thought that was pretty cool. So, you can go here. It's hiskingdomprophecy.com. And he's put he's obviously got cojones to put all of his, quote, prophecies on here, starting from... Oh, this is actually into one of his prophecies. Let me go back to his main page. That was one of his prophecies. Here's his main page. And so you can click prophecy here. And I think, chronological list of prophecies. That's where I had originally gone. And this lists all of his prophecies. Like I was saying, that takes cojones to put all your prophecies online. Oh my goodness, these are not his prophecies. These are other people's prophecies. What am I missing here? I thought this was Mark Taylor's website. Okay, let's back up. This is apparently not Mark Taylor's website, but these are Mark Taylor's prophecies on another person's website. So I'm sorry, I'm scratching everything I just said. I was mistaken. I just realized this is not Mark Taylor's site. But on this site, hiskingdomprophecy.com, there is a list of Mark Taylor's supposed prophecies. So what I wanted to do is show, these go back pretty far. This one is from 2020. This one is from 2017. So I wanted to go through some of the information in these, and let's talk about it together. That's what I wanted to do. So... Mark Taylor, he's the one, I think he's called the Trump prophet, because a lot of his prophecies had to do with Trump. Note when this one was written. This one came to Mark Taylor, I guess, in 2017, in the spring of 2017, almost the summer. So this is after Trump took office. He was already in office, okay? So I'm thinking back to that time in my head. And I'm going to compare what he says to what I was thinking then, because that was the time period. Trump had already taken office. By the way, for those of you, I know some of you are going to be like, don't talk about that guy. The Q post had already started at this time. They had been in progress for a long time. Am I correct there? Am I correct? I'm going to look at something really quick on that. I want to be sure about that before I say that. Leave that. Leave. Forgive me, guys. I just want to look something up really quick. I just want to know what I'm talking about. Make sure I don't misspeak here. I'm incorrect. This is prior to the first Q post. And that should be relevant to some of you, not to others. I get it. That's fine. I just want to mention that, okay? So this is what Mark Taylor says in July 2017, after Trump had already been elected. He says, "The Spirit of God says, I have chosen this man, Donald Trump, for such a time as this." Okay, now that statement, let's just evaluate each statement as it comes. Anyone on earth could say that about Donald Trump. Anyone who wanted to could say this. To me, this is not prophetic. It's not It's essentially him asserting that he is speaking for the Spirit of God, and that through him, the Spirit of God is saying that I guess that means the Spirit, or does it mean God himself, have chosen the man Donald Trump for such a time as this. So already there's, to me, questions like, what is this? Where is this coming from? Anyone who liked Donald Trump could have said this after 2017, after he was inaugurated. So what? Then he says, as Benjamin Netanyahu is to Israel, so shall this man be to the United States of America. Benjamin Netanyahu, he is essentially a traitor to his people. I mean, he is a warmongering, backstabbing, anti-populationist. I mean, I don't know what to say. Benjamin Netanyahu has been caught in so many lies over the decades. So, yay, do we want the president of the United States to be like him? I don't think so. To me, this is Mark Taylor speaking instead of God, okay? It's him saying what he wants, what he thinks in his head. He says, for I will use this man to bring honor, respect, restoration to America. Okay. This is another one of those kind of ambiguous statements that anyone could say about America. You could say that Trump tried to do some of this in his terms, or his term. But I would say that in totality, at this point, America does not have honor, respect, and restoration. So do you see this as a prophecy for the future? Or do you think it's a prophecy he made and went wrong? Or do you not think it's a prophecy at all? See, this is where it's problematic. America will be respected once again as the most powerful and prosperous nation on earth. I mean, anyone who wanted America to be prosperous could say this, and in the future that might occur. Does that mean this was a prophet? I don't know, man. I don't know. Do you see why I have such trouble with this? He says the dollar will be strong again. It will be the currency by which all others are judged. Well, right now that's definitely not the case. The Spirit of God says, the enemy will quake and shake and fear this man I have anointed. I think in some ways that might be true. I think that Donald Trump has some severe enemies, and they definitely don't like him. I don't know if they're quaking and shaking, but they definitely hate him. Okay. This is the best part of the prophecy so far, I think. Anyway, you guys see where I'm coming from on this. This is a weird one to me. They will even quake and shake when he announces he is running for president. It will be like the shot heard across the world. To me, this is problematic. By the way, the shot heard around the world is a statement from the posts of Q. So I don't understand, why does this come into his prophecy? And then he says, when he announces he's running for president, is the date on this article true, or did he post this long before Trump ran for president? I don't understand that. Maybe we've got the dating wrong here, but I'm just saying this seems odd. Like, they will quake and shake when he announces he's running for president. Well, if Mark Taylor did this prior to him announcing his campaign for president in 2016, then I guess I could see where that might be true. Maybe that one's a good one. I don't know. The enemy will say, what do we do now? The Spirit says, no one shall stop this that I have started, for the enemy has stolen from America for decades, and it stops now. I will say this, guys. I always felt like these prophets, I'll tell you what I felt like they were doing always. It felt like they were taking what was in Q's posts, repackaging it, adding some to it as prophetic, saying it was prophecy, and then putting it out there and getting a lot of attention for it. That's what I felt like the quote prophets that came after Q started were doing. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, anything I'm saying about Q, okay? We could have our differences of opinion on that. I don't think you even probably understand my opinion on Q. But It was not prophetic. Q was not prophetic. He said it wasn't. Okay? So people have all of that so wrong. It's just so frustrating to me. But I believe that a lot of these prophets, quote unquote, took that information and just went crazy with it. I hate to say, but that's what I do think. He says, I'm going to use this man to reap the harvest the United States has sown for and plunder the enemy what he has stolen and return it sevenfold. Okay. To me, this stuff also feels a little like when you go to a palm reader and you hear all the things you want to hear. You hear all the things you want to hear, and it's all based on things they know you know about. And so the palm reader, the quote magician, they're sensitive to that stuff, and they tell you what you want to hear. And the more that you respond to it, oh, that's good. Then they go further in that direction because they know you want to hear that more. It's not rocket science, it's manipulation. And I just don't know Mark Taylor at all. I can't speak for him as far as his motives here. I just don't get anything out of this. What is it that I'm supposed to... That's the other thing. What am I supposed to get from this prophecy? Am I supposed to get comfort that he's apparently on thinking that things are going to be fixed in the end or at some point in the future? So is this comforting? Is it really telling me the future? I don't know. It doesn't seem to be helping me very much. The man's word is his bond. So what? In the sense of prophetic knowledge, so what? I just don't... Do you guys see where I'm coming from on this? I'm getting frustrated because the more I read of this, the madder I get. Well, anyway, I'm going to check your comments, guys, because I'm starting to get... what did I do with my comments? I killed them somehow with y'all's comments. There we go. Where's the comments? Come back. There we go. Oh, it's there. All right. Stacia, you say those darn dates. They seem to be a problem across the board. C. Jones, you say that's from 2011, and he's a huge Q guy. Yeah. Well, Q didn't start till 2017. So I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Maybe he is prophetic. I don't know. Patrick Murphy, good to have you this morning, by the way. You say, how many false prophecies does it take to make a false prophet? Answer, 1. That's true. The thing is, in the Bible, by the way, guys, when you compare these prophets to the prophets in the Bible, do you know what the penalty in the Bible was for being wrong as a prophet? You would be stoned to death and killed for your inaccuracy as a prophet. So today, instead, we're like, oh, they can be wrong a few times. It's okay. They don't have to be right all the time. We know they are God's people. I've heard that from the lips of people that follow these prophets. I know they're God's people. We can trust them. They're definitely God's people. They may get something wrong every now and then. That's not their fault. That's what they'll say. That's not their fault. They're trying to listen to God. It's very complicated. It's hard. It wasn't hard for the prophets in the Old Testament. It was not hard as far as we understand it. It was very simple. I don't know. The Truth Curers, appreciate you being here this morning. You say we will know them by their fruits. I personally wouldn't even feed their rotten fruit to my chickens. Thank you for that. Rekindle your faith in God by believing I am a prophet. That's what Squiffy Berry put on there. Yeah, it's kind of the thing they say. I mean, C. Jones, you say, yeah, his supposed prophecies in his book were way before Q. That helps me, C. Jones, because I based on this website, I was wrong on the dates, apparently. I was trying to find... I thought it was his website, so I thought the dates were accurate, but it's not. they must have just collected his prophecies and put them here. So I would have to look and see. But yeah, you're probably right. You know it better than me. You're saying way before Q started, yeah. Which is interesting. I mean, that lends it a little more credence to me, a little more. But again, the things he says are kind of like, instead of prophecies, they're more like wishful thinkings. Like he's just putting stuff out there like, he's going to be my man. He's going to do good things. He's going to fix America, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Stacia, you say the Pharisees wanted the same thing, right? And Linda Connor, you say they all have books too. See, that to me is interesting. Are they making money from their prophecies? If the answer is yes, that doesn't sit well with me in my gut, right? I mean, you guys know so far on the Bible Scribe channel, everything that I have done to help people with the Bible and scriptures and all this has been 100% free. 100%. I have done it at my own expense because God has provided me the means to do this, and I don't feel like it's necessary for me to dive into everybody's pockets to get this done. Now, I will say, there may be a future time where if this gets to a point where I just can't handle doing it appropriately, giving the time investment enough to, keep my other job, my 9-to-5er, and then do this in my spare time, if it really gets beyond being able to handle that, then that might be a decision I have to make. But just realize I've done now, how many years worth? I think it's been almost 5 or 6 years, guys, of Bible Scribe work for free. And these guys, they put out some prophecies and get some viral content out there, and then they're writing books and stuff and making money off of it. I mean, I just don't, it doesn't sit well with me. I'll just say, like, whenever I go to God asking, should I charge for this? Should I ask people to give? Somehow he calms my spirit and he says to me, without audible words, he doesn't really say no, but he just doesn't give me a sense in which that's a necessary thing right now. And especially in a time when people are struggling. There's a lot of you guys here that probably are struggling in this economy. We've had our own struggles because of different things. But inflation is insane right now. Insane. I mean, you've got some people on the internet trying to measure inflation because you know that our government isn't doing it. Some people are measuring inflation between when Biden came into office and right now at 150% inflation on some items. You take just the price of automobiles. Did you know a brand new Ford Bronco, okay, with just a basic sport package is $75,000. $75,000. I still cannot believe that. A Ford Bronco, $75,000. And I see people driving them all over the place. I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys are crazy. But I'm just saying, it's like, this is a time when people are struggling. And to me, if I can give this to the Christian body and do it at my own expense because God has blessed me with that enough resources to take care of it, I feel like I can do that. And maybe there's a time in the future where everyone's not so crushed under the weight of the economy and this other stuff that's going on. And maybe I'll change the game a little bit. Maybe. And I'm just saying. But yeah, these prophets are definitely at some level making money on what they have done. We can't assume that that's a malintent, but at the same time, it does change what you do when you're making money from it, when you're starting to rely on the income. Checking my time here, guys, but yeah, Laura, you say tuition for private schools and college is absurdly high. Yes, it is absurd. It's absurd. In fact, if I had it to do over, and it's always tough, figuring out as parents what to do with your children. And of course, you and your spouse probably have different ideas on some of that. And that was the case in my case too, with my children. But if I had it to do, I would tell my children, do whatever you want. If you don't want to go to college, you need to get a job. You're going to have to provide for yourself, because soon you're not going to be able to live in my house anymore. But I would be like, if that's the way you want to go, you want to build your career from starting from a job, do it. I've seen that happen and it worked for people. If you want to go into business for yourself, do it. Figure it out. But know that you need to learn to do it. If you want to go to college first and maybe give yourself a jump start, if you do the right type of education in college, do it. But I'm telling you, college is not always the answer for people. It is way too expensive right now, for sure. Squiffy, you say that forecasting based on some decent pattern recognition can look prophetic to the uneducated. That's a really good comment. A really good comment. I don't even want to add to that. It's perfect. Rick Bowser, you think it's absurd to go to college now. I think there's some careers in which college still provides a benefit. Definite. For instance, I'm in software and technology. If you don't have any college degree, it's really hard to break into software and technology, because companies want to know that you at least know something about it, have some experience doing it, something. I think it's possible you could do that kind of career field without any technology education, but you would have to demonstrate experience. And I know, because I've interviewed people many times. So you have to demonstrate the knowledge and the capacity. Anyway, that's a tough one. But I think there's some careers that it really requires training. Now, I think there's some, of course, different technical types of training, or even manual labor types of training, that with simply just getting training on that to do the job, you can then get a job and be very proficient. So there's just there's a variety of things. That's why I think if I had it over to do it over again, I might just advise my kids, like, we got to figure this out together. Let's figure out what you want to do, and let's figure out the best way to achieve that. It may or may not be college, maybe training school, maybe trade school, maybe this, maybe that, maybe community college for a couple of years, then go into the field. It may be just go and start your business. It may be something like that. There's about 100 ways to skin that cat, I think, now. And the huge premium that's put on college is not necessarily, I think, the best way for everyone to do it. Whew. Charles Murphy, you say they want us to depend on them, not God, the prophets, I would assume you say. And that makes it difficult sometimes to get ahead. Yeah. Or maybe you are talking about college, because it applies both ways. Yeah. Squiffy, you say, who doesn't want a degree in underwater basket weaving? Exactly. What kills me is these like little videos of people that are fresh out of college and they have a degree in something dumb like social services, and they're like, I can't find a good job. I'm like, well, why is everyone studying stupid stuff like social services? Why don't you just learn how to make a product or be efficient in some kind of trade? I don't understand why everyone wants to do these stupid service industries. Our whole economy is based on service industries because they farmed out all the production to other countries. Do you see what our government has done to us over the years? All of the production and invention has now been farmed out to other countries. So America, who used to be really good at production, invention, all of this stuff, industry, is now terrible at it. And we farm it out. And most of the jobs that you get are service industry. Medical, attorneys, government. It's all services. It's not products. There's no products. We don't make products anymore in America. It's got to change, or we will fail as a nation. Codename Lumiere, you say your comment above seems to say that all prophecy and vision is sealed up. Therefore, there's none today. It's all done. Yes. And Codename Lumiere, by the way, welcome this morning. It's good to have you. I have mentioned that before also, and I totally agree with that. It says that, I've taught about it many times now, but in Zechariah, he talks about that prophets after the time that it was being prophesied, after the time of Christ and all those things were fulfilled, that any prophets that came after that would go into hiding. And that if they were found out to claim to be a prophet after that time, they would maybe be killed, even by their own parents, because they knew that prophecy had been sealed and shut up. And we're talking about, by the way, the prophecy that came out of the Bible, that kind of prophecy, not the prophecy of Clement and Mark Taylor. Okay, we're not talking about that kind of prophecy. And so, to me, I agree 100%, Codename, that prophecy like was in the Bible is not going to come anymore. And so that's part of why I don't give any credence to Mark Taylor and Kim Clement, because, again, I know that no real big prophecy is going to come out of people like that. And I also, again, I go back to the fact that everything they say, none of it really benefits me or changes what I would want to do with my life. That to me is one of the biggest things. Like, I don't understand how people go to these prophets day after day, week after week, and they listen to everything they say because it doesn't make their life any better. They do hear words about good things coming or think they are, whatever, but that doesn't help them do anything or change their behavior. That's what the Old Testament prophets did. They were telling people that because they wanted the Israelites to change their ways and come out of Babylon, okay, and stop worshiping pagan idols. That was the point of the prophets then. Now the point is, I'm going to give you a little bit of tidbit here so you feel good today. And then tomorrow you'll come back and I'm going to give you something else that makes you feel good. So what they're doing really is the people that are going to these prophets day after day, hour after hour, to see what they're going to say next, it's because their hope is there. They're hoping they're going to hear something positive because their life is trash. Okay? Their life is bad. They don't know how to deal with it on a personal level, so these prophets give them a little tidbit of hope, a glimmer, each day. And that's why they keep going back again and again. It's kind of, we might think of that as kind of codependent, like in a negative way. I think psychologically, that's not a very healthy way to be. And then, we have websites that then bring all these prophecies together and they list them out so you can read through them and study them and all this other stuff. And it's just not giving you anything by which to live your life that's helpful. And by the way, this is the same argument I make against New Age people, which is an interesting thing too. It just came to mind because I make the same argument. You've got New Agers that are studying all this New Age stuff day after day, year after year, trying to learn how to get in touch with themselves better, how to meditate better, how to center themselves in the universe, become spiritual minded or whatever that is they're doing. And in the end, the promise of New Age religion leaves them in the same place all the rest of us are. They're still in this life. They don't have any benefits over what they had before they started, other than they, eat more granola and they go out in the woods more often. I don't know. It's like, where's the effect of what you're saying is truth? It's the same kind of empty promises that I see in that New Age movement that I see in these prophets. It's like, what are you really getting out of that? Is it changing your life for the better? Or could you just as easily function on the Bible itself, using that as your guidebook for life, and living your life in a good way? Going out each day and loving people, taking care of them, serving them. What kind of satisfaction does that bring into your life? That will change your life. These prophets, listening to them every day doesn't change my life in a good way. It makes me dependent, right? So I don't know. To me, that's one of the major arguments against these guys and what they do. And, I have a big problem with people that are just so dependent on those prophecies coming day after day. It drives me nuts. Laura Masood, you say it's the same promise given to Eve in the garden. I think that's a good statement. Very good. Charles, you say they are such a joke, and it was Tim Leahy that introduced the Left Behind theory. Yeah. or Tim LaHaye. Yeah. That's right. I said it wrong. All right. Well, guys, that feels good. I don't think I'm going to beat up on those prophets anymore. I just would say that to me, the value's not there. That's what I always come back to. The value is not there for me to use my time in waiting for or reading their next prophecy or watching through a long Kim Clement video like let's see where like this. A long Kim Clement video. Let's see. Let's listen to one for a second. There we go. Here's a good one. Let's see. This one was a good one. See, that was one thing to me that was really interesting. Kim Clement, many times, he prophesied about, and of course he was prophesying mostly during Obama's tenure. And he would always say that it's going to change and, America's going to be made wonderful. And then we're going to have this 7 years of plenty in America. 7 years of plenty. Well, he passed away in 2015. So that was done before. This we just watched was 2015. It was just before he passed away. And we haven't seen 7 years of plenty yet. So how long are people going to wait to see 7 years of plenty and then say, see, Kim Clement was right. 7 years of good stuff in America. It's just so bad. And the other thing I found funny about the Kim Clement is I was watching through some of his videos this week. Was there's in one of these, there's a guy, it shows their band. And if you didn't notice in that video, you hear a cymbal being tapped, right? The cymbal, the drummer's just on the cymbal the whole time. And Kim Clement goes for like 15 or 20 minutes. I was just thinking, this guy is watching Kim Clement. He's like this Indian drummer. He's going for 15 or 20 minutes straight. And I was like, that guy's going to get cramps in his hands. That's got to be the worst job on the world. You're the cymbalist for Kim Clement. You got to play one cymbal for 20 solid minutes. I'm sorry. I just had to because it's so funny to me that there is a job for a guy to do that. Play the cymbal for Kim Clement. Anyway. Okay, guys, I think I'm going to leave Kim Clement and Mark Taylor alone for now. I will say, as I looked around too, I found other prophets online that are doing, they're riding those coattails. For instance, I saw this girl. Her channel is called Spirit Move Ministry. She has 72,000 subscribers. And as I listened to her, so I watched through a few portions of this. I was trying to get, what is she talking about? This is a 30-minute video. There's a lot of people like this online. It goes on and on like this. She says almost nothing through the first whole half or more. I mean, I had to stop watching because I was like, I was going to let you guys listen to a bunch of this and then just ask you, what did she say? She does these videos, though. She does these videos all the time. Almost daily. Every day she does videos talking about... And then in that video, she was explaining that in some dream or something, she heard the numbers 2 to 5 from God. And so she had to determine what the 2 to 5 meant. And she talks all about it. She thought it was February to March, or February to, May in the coming year. This was like in 2020. And it's just, I was like, oh my gosh, for 15, 20 minutes, she said absolutely nothing. I can't waste my life listening to this. I really cannot do it. Although she seems like a nice person, someone needs to tell her to stop. That's what I believe. Someone needs to tell her to stop it. I'm just sorry. It drives me nuts a little bit, but it kind of makes me sad too. But okay, I'm really done with that now. Rafa, you say, didn't Jesus come to fulfill the law and prophets? So no more prophets, right? And I think that's right. Charles Murphy, you say that too. Squiffy Bear, you asked, do I think she believes it? Well, I don't know. I think some of these people do believe it. But I think what she said, from what I gathered when I listened to her, it's kind of that heart voice that, a lot of us have a connection to God that's real. And we hear some things from time to time. And I think from time to time, those things mean something. But the reality is, because there's no new prophets according to the scriptures, I feel like this is the wrong way, that she is doing the wrong thing in taking this online and making a channel with all of these videos on it where she's talking through God's perhaps private revelation to her about things that may give her confidence, may give her encouragement, and she's making that something that is broadcast to the world, to Christians. And she apparently has 72,000 followers who think that what she's saying is valuable to them in some way. But I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. So I guess that's how I responded to that, Squiffy. I don't know. I'm just really torn on these people. But yes, Kelsey, as you mentioned, we had lots of people labeling themselves as a prophet. I think it's actually kind of a dangerous thing to do. I think it's kind of dangerous. I wouldn't call myself a prophet. Heck no. After what I've read in the Bible, I don't want any part of that. No, I'm not a prophet. I might have opinions about things that are going to happen in the future. I might have a lot of opinions about that. We could probably do a whole Sunday morning on just my thoughts on what's coming in the future. I have a lot of thoughts on that. But I don't consider it prophetic, and I don't want to go there, I want to share ideas all day long, but I just don't want to go there. Yeah, Tomcat, you say there's an insane amount of contradictions among them. And that's part of what I was kind of looking for, is where, and I felt like in Clement's, and I was going to go into it, but I found one video where he said there were going to be 7 years of tough times. And that was much earlier than a later video when there was, like you saw, he said 7 years of good fortune in America. So it felt like, okay, Kim, which is it? Anyway, Squiffy, you agree it's incredibly dangerous. You're very concerned that you'll say or do something God would not be happy with. Yeah, I mean, if you don't... Yeah, I'll just leave it there. None of us are prophets, you say, Charles, and I kind of agree with that. I do believe God reveals some things to some people, okay? But I don't know that that's necessarily for us to go out and tell the world and assert that, this is the thing for you, and this is the thing for you, and this is the thing for all of us. Let me be your prophet. That to me is a whole different thing. I just don't know. Well, with that, guys, I think we're about on time here. We got through a lot of things. I'm very aware that we didn't get through all of the things you guys gave me. So I'm going to do my best this week to do the research I need to get those things ready for next week. Just to mention those briefly, Rafa, I didn't get to yours from last week, and you had mentioned the timeline of the Tartaria deception YouTube channel, and I think I will address that next week. I apologize that I didn't get to it again this week. As you saw, there was a lot to do. Let me highlight that in my notes as well. Then Emmy on Leviticus chapter 12 and the woman's uncleanness. I will try to do that next week. And then I have the topics you guys mentioned this morning. Rick Bowser, yours on Peter and Paul and the controversy there that you're going to get me more on. Katie Turner, your mom asked about marrying your cousin and why it was allowed, but you couldn't, or it was not allowed. Excuse me, it was allowed, but marrying your sister wasn't allowed. What was different about all that? And then Laura Masood, yours about, was Adam both male and female before God took Eve from his side? And I can definitely talk about that next time. And we got through everything else. That was a lot. So thank you guys for your attention this morning, your time, and your contribution. That's what makes this special and fun. And I have a blast as always. Appreciate all of you. And definitely, as you guys are saying, have a great Thanksgiving. QB, it was good to have you this morning, even though you were kind of quiet there till the end. Appreciate it. That comment, what if Israel gets overrun and doesn't get saved as prophesied? Yeah, I guess people that believe in that stuff will have a lot of trouble on their hands. They have a lot of things to think about. But you're totally right. Yeah, Squiffy Bear, as you say, God bless everybody. Thank you, and I appreciate the comment. It felt like a good stream. We got through a lot of information. It's going to be hard to devise a title for this stream. There's a lot in there. So you guys have a great Sunday, and if I don't see you before Thanksgiving, have a happy Thanksgiving. And I just like to say now, I'm going to be thanking God for you guys and for this channel and everything we're able to do here. It's so important to so many people. I don't think any of us really realize probably how many hundreds and thousands of people. Do you guys realize overall, if I counted all the videos I've done together, it's probably reached well over 1 million people in total. Okay, it's amazing. Praise God in heaven. I just pray that I'm doing his work and that I stay faithful to the truth, and I'm not putting stuff out there that's incorrect. Like you mentioned, I think it was you, Squiffy Bear, you don't want to put out false information. So again, pray for me, and as I pray for you, and we pray for each other. And Chris G, we'll think of you this week. God bless all of you guys. Take care.